Hello, and welcome to Book Circle. I'm Earl Weinberg. This time we will continue our reading of Past Master by R.A. Lafferty. We've been following our protagonist, Thomas More, the inventor of the idea of utopia, as he finds himself sucked into a real utopia and brainwashed to within an inch of his life into accepting every last detail, including the idea that individuality is a crime and a sin. Chapter 10: The Deformity of Things to Come. But there was something in Thomas that did not lie down and play dead as easily as all that. He was the revenant with the double mark upon him, and the old part of it surged up in him now and almost tore him apart. He was off in a waking afternoon nightmare, not knowing where he was or what he did. He was riven in his own self, but he had not lost the way forever. That was the odd thing about this, that Thomas did have afterthoughts on the matter. And afterthoughts were supposed to be banished from his brain. They had taken him over completely and were sure of him, but they shouldn't have been. He could revolt yet, shrewdly sometimes, blindly sometimes. He could almost become aware that he had been taken over. There were hidden areas in which, for all his strong profession of faith, he did not yet fully accept the Astrobe dream. There were even areas in which he remained a private person, though feeling in his taken over brain that it was wrong so to hold on to a piece of himself. And now he found a lucid moment when he could stand back and study the behavior of his curious self. It is still odder that I should be taken in by my own trap, he said. Look, Thomas, myself, my me, what was it that I did in my other life for a bitter joke? I invented the damned thing. Was it not myself who coined the utopia? Did I not know that I used fool's gold instead of real gold for the coining? What has happened now? How am I to be taken in by it? What am I, God, that I make a sour joke, and in so doing I create a golden world in the future, and then stumble into that ridiculous future? Was other writer ever damned to live in a sly tale that he had made himself? Was other lawyer ever cursed to find a legality for his own joke? Was other chancellor ever required to administer a world that he had made in derision? So help me God, if I live beyond my second death, I will pay more attention to what I do. It is not real gold, I tell myself. It is bogus stuff that I picked up out of a ditch and molded for a jibe. And it turned into a whole world, my sick daydream. Why, I find it is real gold after all, and I have made a world out of it, and I stand a fool from every direction. Somebody had dialed Thomas, perhaps at random, perhaps to monitor him, and was trying to come into his mind. Begone, Thomas said loudly. Begone, I say. Yes, I know that it is wrong to bar anyone from my mind. I know that you, whoever you are, have as much business in my mind as I have. Bear with me. Bear with me. This is a writhing thing, and I must wrestle it by myself. I'm an unperfected man, and I must still have a private moment now and then. Begone. I shut you out. The prober left the mind of Thomas angrily, and Thomas felt bad about it. It will look ill, he said, if the incoming president of Astrobe is hailed into common court on a complaint under the Open Mind Act. There was a rustle and noises behind him, and it began to worry him. But he had other worries as various things fought in his mind. It is beyond belief that this world should be true, he said again to himself. It seemed so grotesque and sourly comic when I invented it. I wish I hadn't read so much, particularly after my first death. It addles my brains to think that there may be some who really advocated the sick thing. Well, it's come on to me, so I will live in it. Let the things in my brain tell me again how wonderful it is. All glory to Udin, the everything and nothing. No, no, it's all wrong. Thomas broke away from the thoughts that tried to pull him under and went running and stumbling along and crying to himself. It is snakes writhing in my head. It is not valid thought. How have I been taken in? Me, a man who could always see a low trick so far away off. How have the snakes gotten into my head anyhow? Did I stand like a scared sheep and let them enter? How have I become unmanned? When I was a boy, I believed in God. When I was a man, I still half believed. How have I been hooked by the big O, the gawking Omega, the vile Uden nothingness? Who would imagine that as a mature man I would worship so empty a God? Dangerous thoughts these, for now my heel hounds have turned dangerous again. Thomas More, all but declared president of Astrobe, had been walking in and out of a daze in a place he hated and despised. What had drawn him there? Now he was in a weird settlement between Big Cathead and Woo Town, the least golden, the least committed of the great cities of Astrobe. He was conscious of the stench of Cathead when he heard again the hair-raising rustle and clatter behind him. He ran. The programmed killers had sensed the change in Thomas. They no longer smiled quizzically at him while they watched and waited. They had never ceased trailing him, and now they remembered why. He had changed again, whether temporarily or permanently was not their affair. Now they moved after him to kill him. I'm lost, Thomas howled. Mind, do a flip-flop. Return my trust in the thing. Snakes in my brain, chime out your glad tidings again. Tell the world that Thomas is again faithful to the vision. Tell the clanking things that I'm no threat to anything and that they be a mortal threat to me. Thomas slipped and fell and was barely up in time. He was running hard and they were hard behind him. A sturdy runner can outspeed them for a very little while, but the programmed are tireless. It was unnecessary to lose them. Thomas tried to fathom out or remember streets and alleys that he had never seen before. He was lost, and his pursuers were not. He knew that some of them had peeled off from the group and were circling around somewhere. No matter where he doubled back, they were likely to have him in a narrow passage. Then suddenly he was defiant, and his craven fear had become repulsive to him. Snakes in my brain, out, out, he bawled. I'll nest you no longer. I'll die a man if I do die here. And I'll know I was right the first time. Damn, it was always fool's gold, and I knew it. Fool's gold and brimstone it was. I'd rather be a cathead lunger coughing up my life's blood than be a king of their folly. But he would be nothing if he did not shake the killers. He'd cough up his life's blood quicker than the sickest lunger in Cathead. There was a clear way ahead, and the vision of a region he knew, and there was a dead-end alley, a trap to his left. Thomas lunged for the clear way, but he turned into the blind alley. No, no, he swore, I do not want to enter this alley. It is a dead end, a death trap. Why do I enter? The other day, someone else was thinking with my brain and talking with my mouth. This evening, someone else is running with my legs. But he sprinted mightily for the end of the dead lane. There was a broke gap in the brick wall through which a determined man might force himself if his life depended on it. He came almost to the gap, and a programmed killer was forcing its own way back through that gap. Another followed him through. They were stalking him from both ends of the alley. It was all sheer brick and stone walls, slimy and green with old age and old rain, and no man could climb them. And there was no door or opening of any sort in the short length of the alley. No door. Are you sure? Thomas felt that he was a puppet played on strings. He also felt that it might be the cleanest thing to let the killers have him there. Someone had drawn him into this sack. Had he taken the other turning, he'd have had a live chance of escaping the killers. He'd escaped them before. But had he been drawn here to his death, or to something dirtier? For there was a door there. It hadn't been there before, and it shouldn't be there now. What are the odds? Thomas asked himself loudly. He surged through the door, snakes crawling back into his mind, knowing that he went from the world into a dream, knowing that he went from life to a something queerer even than death. He slammed the door heavily and bolted it behind him. And he stood in total darkness. Sit at the table with us, said a voice, a wrong side voice, either inside Thomas's head or without. Now we talk. Set a light, Thomas said. It's blind dark. We don't need a light, the voice said. Stop fighting the things in your head. They can see for you. Is it not so? Do you not see now, and not by light? Thomas saw now, and not by light. He looked at things through somebody else's eyes, perhaps through the eyes of the things. He was seeing in total darkness through the eyes of the eerie snakes in his head, and he was looking at things that he would rather not have seen. There were 9 of the things there. Thomas had learned to think of them as things in his last defiant surge back to reason. What were they? What was their form? Men. Men seen from the other side. From the backside? Yes, in the sense that a tapestry may be seen from its backside, the same picture but rough and deformed. These things were the deformation of mankind. 9 of the things there, and they were drawn up in groups of 3 around a large conference table. Like men, but with all the wrong things emphasized. Ears, man ears, and yet somehow swinish. Noses that were snouts, and yet not large, not malformed, simply wrongly emphasized. Eyes that were made like human eyes, and yet these were not humans looking out of them. They were not men, though Thomas was sure that he had known at least one of them as a man. They were programmed persons, all things. Good evening, gentle contrivances, Thomas said as he took a bold seat at the head of the table. It was not where they had motioned him to sit. Not there, sharply cried one of those that Thomas had known as a man. That is reserved for the holy Udin. I sit here, and Thomas sat. I once told the Paul that I would have to discover for myself the name of the real king of Astrobe. It is the Udin himself. Let old nothingness find his own seat. I do not sit below the salt or any tin horn things. Are the stilted killers outside belonging to your party? Do you control them? Was it you who drew me into this blind sack? Of course, said one of them, speaking with a voice too smooth to be human. I am Boggle, and these other 2 who form a creative trinity with me are Skyball and Swampers. Our specialty is retrogression. Jackals you be, said Thomas, and the 3 were very like jackals. The jackals in human form may be told by the lay of the hair and the set of the ears. Yet they were of good human appearance, though more alienated from the human than even the real jackal animal. 3 snakes stirred in Thomas's brain. The snakes were in accord with these 3 things. They must have been their extensions. Retrogression, then, Thomas said. Go find your dens and run in another head. I am North Prophet, said the leader of the second group. My fellows here are Knobnoster and Bee-Bonnet, and our specialty is recabitism. Dogs you be, Thomas swore, and the 3 had all a touch of the dog in them. It was most weird that these creatures should seem on 3 levels, the human, the animal, and the machine. Then Thomas knew there was still another level to them all, the ghost. Ah, this North Prophet had himself once been a candidate for president of Astrobe. He had passed as a man, and then there had come the moment when he could not quite pass. It had made more of a difference then. The programmed had built him especially for the job of world president. He was deftly contrived. He would have made the perfect world president from the programmed view. 3 more snakes stirred in Thomas's brain, one of them a great one. This North Prophet was great among his kind. Rattle along, things, Thomas said sharply. My time is limited, so is my life, and I do not enjoy the company overmuch. I am Potscamp, said the leader of the third group. And of course it was the old acquaintance whom Thomas had known as a man, the 4th member of the Big 3. But he looked greatly different now, as things do look different in a nightmare, and Thomas was forced to think of him differently now that he was no longer a friend, now that he was a programmed and not a human, now that he was known to have a brain snake as a familiar and an extension of himself. My companions here are Holy G and Gandhi, Potscamp said, and our specialty is extrapolation. Wilderness wolves ye be, Thomas said. You howl higher than the ear on a bleaker moor than any on this world. All right, the 9 of you. Extrapolate, damn it. Retrogress, recapitize. 9 of you, and are your extensions not the 9 snakes nesting in my brain? Of course, Thomas, said Potscamp. You are our assignment. No other man ever rated so many important snakes. This is the talk that I promised you, Thomas. I told you that I held the big three in the middle of my maw. They argue which of them are the puppets and which the puppeteer, but I am the theater in which their little show is played out. And I promised you that you would be shown the back of the tapestry. Now it is that we will show you that picture of the reverse side, of the true side. It is a more meaningful world than the one you are accustomed to. Odd design, the back of that tapestry, Potscamp, Thomas said. Full of snakes, is it not? Not at all, Thomas. From the true side, they are not snakes, but royal curlicues twisted in mystic curves. Thomas, it is only for our old companionship that you are here at all, and I will say that yours is one of the most interesting minds I ever nested in. The others wanted to kill you offhand and to substitute a replica of you that would be of our kind. I don't come through on replica, Potscamp. I'm invisible there. The replica we'd make of you would come through. We'd make it better and more like you than you are yourself, and it would behave as you have behaved, but without these moments of rebellion. On with it, Potscamp. Show me the backward picture, since I'm here in a trap and must listen. You extrapolate, do you? Do it then. It is that ourselves are the extrapolation of mankind, North Prophet cut in. He seemed to outrank Potscamp himself in this hierarchy. We will tell you the facts, Thomas, since you will not be able to stand against them. We confess that we have a little bit of the showboat attitude programmed into us, and we love to gloat. You will not be able to do anything about what we tell you here, but conversely, we are not able to extinguish you yet. That is really why we have not done it. We know that you have a warded life and that it is impossible to kill you till your time shall come. However, we could easily hide you and substitute for you, and it would be possible to cut you up terribly to come very near to killing you. We could turn you into no more than a vegetable that suffers, but you will not die till you are so fated. Are the programmed as foolish as humans to believe in fate? Thomas asked. This seeing without light through the eyes of others was a little bit like seeing under water, seeing under something much deeper. One saw in both surface and depth. One saw but did not comprehend the interior mechanism as well as the surface weirdness of these entities, saw the jumbled essence that made one call North Prophet howling dog and Potscamp wilderness wolf. There were animal like ghosts inside them, and seeing with extensions of their own eyes, one saw this ghostliness. I thought that you programmed were merely interesting toys. Now I find you are deformed toys, but things still. Get back in your boxes, you jump jacks. Thomas, we've taken over the box, said Potscamp. The box is Astro. We take over all the boxes. Now we call it. You jump. You are the toys now, and we play with you till we throw you away. Who are you, clockwork things that grow too grand? Who are we, and how did we begin, Thomas? The texts that you yourself are permitted to study are only the shadow of the story. A century ago, certain men of science made the first of us as a means of studying themselves. They wished to see if they could make men better than men were made naturally. We turn aside for a moment in the explanation, Thomas. Hear one thing and then forget it. You believe a little bit at times, Thomas, and with your tatters of faith, you guess a little who we are. According to your ancient belief, we are devils. What we call ourselves is another thing, but we are older than our own manufacture and older than our programming. These are houses, and well made ones that we found swept and garnished, and we moved into them. This particular bit of information, Thomas, is that part which you will forget most quickly and most thoroughly. See, you have forgotten it already. Potscamp had seemed to stutter in the inside the maw of no light that illuminated all things there, and then he went on. They wished to see if they could make men better than men are made naturally. They should never have taken that cover off that box. You yourself have called us a boy's dream, and you have professed great wonder about us. We will not talk now about paracolloidal chemistry and zygote electronics, nor about gel cells and flux fix. It isn't my field, and you yourself are 1,000 years behind on science. It is seldom mentioned, however, what raw material was used for the first of us, what was the matrix in which the devices and controls were embedded. It was a dozen young and unintelligent human criminals. What minds they had were direct and uncomplicated. There was in the selected 12 young men an absence of what is called emotion, of what is called indecision, an absence of such human aberrations as remorse and conscience. They were a carefully selected collection of walking corpses, large blank pages on which could be printed anything whatsoever. These men of science printed themselves, ourselves, upon them. But these men of science who contrived us were also a carefully selected dozen selected by themselves. They also were comparatively young, but intelligent human criminals. Criminal for human is right for us, of course. It was the morality business that had most crippled mankind and held it back, and this dozen scientists knew it. Themselves were of such an elite, so hard to come by, so difficult to find even 12 on a populated world, that they decided to produce themselves artificially and with every improvement built in. These improvements they could put into a device laid out before them, but could less easily put into themselves. It couldn't have happened quite like that, Thomas protested. You're live things, however warped and artificial. There's something you're not telling me, something you are hiding with words. Be patient, good Thomas, and listen, said Potscamp, the wilderness wolf in the shape of a man. They made us into complex electronic and chemical coded gadgets, able to reproduce ourselves like humans, and yet with less than 10% of our tissue of human origin after we were perfected. We have, you see, spare brains and information nexuses stowed all over us. We can rearrange ourselves quickly and with no loss of function into other forms than that which we usually use to pass as human. We can also send out extensions of ourselves, flyers, the snakes in your brain, Thomas. We can do everything that man can do, and very much besides. So there is duplication here. Man is obsoleted. Who needs him? Who wants him? Are we really men? It is sometimes asked. No, we are not. Have we that special something that distinguishes men from animals and from machines? No, we have not. And man has it not either. That special something is imaginary. Suffice it to say that those single minded men who invented us did break down the barrier between living and non living matter, and they discovered that the living was the illusion. Well, then, they created us as dead men, and dead men we be. We are dead, and all is dead. But we believe that we are complete. We feel that there is no dimension beyond ourselves. In our beginning, man made us. Then we made ourselves, a little more efficiently than man could do it. We reproduce almost in your own manner. We even cross with humans, with some curious results. We have become man. We have replaced man. Soon man will be nothing. If what you say is true, old wolf ghost Potscamp, and I feel that it isn't completely true, then how do you differ from mankind? Thomas wanted to know. How will it matter if mankind is destroyed? It surely will not matter to us, Thomas, old wolf ghost Potscamp said. We'd have completed it long ago, but details take time and obstructions aren't cleared in a year. It does not matter to the mainstreams of mankind. To those mainstreams, the typical man of Astrobe today, they would rather be phased out as not. It makes a difference only to the divergent people, the atypical and negligible ones. But I didn't mean that we were identical to men. We aren't. There is a great difference. You learned that difference, though you cannot give a name to it, talking to the divergence of Cathead. The lungers, the hardheads, know us every time. We cannot pass with them, for men, not even for a minute. There are differences between ourselves and men. We will root them out of men, or we will root out men. One of the things is consciousness. Men claim to have it. We do not have it. You are not conscious? Thomas gasped. That is the most amazing thing I have ever heard. You walk and talk and argue and kill and subvert and lay out plans over the centuries, and you say that you are not conscious? Of course we aren't, Thomas. We are machines. How could we be conscious? But we believe that men are not conscious either, that there is no such thing as consciousness. It is an illusion in counting, a feeling that one is two. It is a word without real meaning. But if we are not conscious, then all is in vain, said Thomas. To what purpose then is life? To no purpose, Bogle cut in. That is why we are doing away with it. What? All life, yours and ours? That is horrifying, Thomas exclaimed. Yes, all life, yours and ours, Bogle said. Who needs it? Who wants it? Who thought it up in the first place? It is a disturbance of the ultimate thing, and it cannot be tolerated much longer. We have, and men have, an appetite for life. Men programmed it into us, but we are now programming it out of ourselves. The growing generation of ourselves is to be the final generation. They will remain only long enough to oversee the obliteration of mankind. Then they will extinguish themselves. We do not know how men came to have such a strange appetite. We do not know how men themselves or anything whatsoever came to be. But it was a bad idea from the beginning. As soon as we here present have lived our lives to some fullness and have satisfied our curiosities, curiosity is programmed into us, but it is not programmed into our final generation, then we will phase out these appetites in ourselves. We will phase our reproduction out also. In fact, we have recently done that for ourselves. We will terminate it all. We will close down the worlds and make an end of life. It will be nothing, 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 forever, forever, for never, for never. And when all has ceased to be, it will also happen that nothing has ever been. We will pull the whole in after us. We will pull out the stars, one by one and billion by billion. And when all has ceased to be, it will also happen that nothing has ever been. We will pull the whole in after us. We will put out the stars, one by one and billion by billion. What is not known to be is not, and what is not has never been. Peace in annihilation, good Thomas. Peace and annihilation, good Bogle, and may great Udin be praised for never and never, Thomas croaked. Damn you all, he exploded. I didn't say that. Somebody else said it out of my mouth. What snake talks in my head? Oh, that was myself, said Skyball. We also have our humor. Good Thomas, said Swampers, one of the minor jackal ghosts. The spirit came down once on water and clay. Could it not come down on gel cells and flux fix? What means the quiet jackal by blurting that out? Thomas asked them all. It means nothing to me. If it means nothing to you, then it means nothing at all, North Prophet said. So it has come to this, Thomas said sadly, and only the men who set up monstrous Cathead knew that something was wrong. The run of men have become so empty and mechanical and effete that they could not tell themselves from you. Only the hardheads with the transcendent smell on them recognized the deformity. They knew that you were not men. They knew that most men were not men. They refused the terminal golden pap. They challenged the economic bribery and the surrogate life. They wanted life itself, however mean. They set up their own complex with every sanction against them. They built extreme suffering into it, as a man will smash his hand against a post in pain to prove that he is awake. They undercut and undersold the machine mind men with their own lungs' blood. Worse than any death is never having lived. Worst of all is never having lived in life. I'd rather be a soul in hell than nothing at all. Even that choice will be denied you, said Holy Chi. We will extinguish hell also if it has any existence. All must go, and when it is all finished, we also will never have been. If you be not, why do you mind that others be? Thomas asked. It displeases Udin that any be, Holy G said. He has a jealous maw. Good Thomas, said Gandy, one of the minor wilderness wolf ghosts, there is an old human phrase, the left hand of God. Might it not come down on left-handed entities such as ourselves? Mock me if you will, Thomas said angrily, but mock not the poor people who still believe. Or do I get your meaning? If it means nothing to you, Thomas, then it means nothing at all, Potscamp said. And now what will you do, Thomas? North Prophet asked him. Will you refuse the golden dole and go cough up your lungs with the poor men of Cathead and the Barrio? You know it is we who have devised that their poverty should be so grinding. We frustrate them in every detail. They had some workable ideas, but we do not let them work. Will you go with them, Thomas? You love your comforts too much for that. Where can you turn with any hope? Hope, by the way, is one of those concepts which we have already rooted out of most men. It was never in ourselves. In what can you hope, Thomas? I will still turn with some slight hope to the three cryptic men who brought me here, Thomas said. You hope too high, North Prophet told him. One of them is a turgid man of no consequence, and we use him for a front. The second of them is an artificial man of our own sort. Proctor? Yes, he's a programmed person. He's programmed to be lucky. And Thomas, we'll make you a fair offer. We'll do the same thing for you. We'll give you the luckiest life alive. You can name your own details, but you must take our offer now. We won't dangle it forever. No, I'll continue with my own luck, Thomas said. So much for that, said Podscamp. And now a few instructions, Thomas. You will be compelled to obey them by the snakes in your head, ourselves. You will not destroy the cathead thing. We enjoy the suffering of them there, and we fear the reaction if it is destroyed before things are ripe. In our own time, in our own very near time, we will terminate cathead and golden astrobe and all. What of the high vision, the astrobe dream that you put into the tall heads of the people? Thomas asked. Oh, the vision is valid, Potscamp said. It is the whole thing. It slipped in on you and you made love to it several times. You are not in all ways different from the 90% of the men. The vision of the golden premise of nothing beyond, and the conclusion is wholly Uden. Nothing here either. Nothing ever. Of the men who sent for me, there is still the third man, Foreman, Thomas said. Yes, he still tilts with us, North Prophet admitted. He was one of the first to understand the situation, and he will be one of the last to give up on it. That man has given us more trouble than any other, and he acts as though he still has one trick to play. We believe it concerns you. But you cannot oppose us, Thomas. We envelop you. Nobody supports you more strongly than we do. Not the Third Compromise Party, not the Kiss of Death, not the Hat Rack, not the demos. It is ourselves working through all the parties who put you over. Who but us has raked the pebbles from your path and strewn flowers before your feet? Who but ourselves have won it for you, influencing so many minds directly and indirectly? Snakes in your head. You know how we do it. We beat the drum for you day and night. You are our patsy. You can't escape us. It would not even do you any good to disappear, supposing that you could hide from us. We could make another Thomas More in an hour, and nobody would know the difference. A man named Foreman would know the difference, Thomas maintained. The child brat would know, and the men Copperhead and Battersea and Rimrock and Shanty. Paul would know, and the creature Maxwell who's between bodies. The boy Adam would know, and he would not die for a surrogate. A woman who touched me in a muddy lane would know the difference. No, I'll have naught to do with you, nor your thing. Snakes in my brain at all, I'll fight me a battle yet. No, no, you will forget all of it, Thomas, said Swampers. The specialty of our group is retrogression, and we will retrogress you. When you walk out of that door, you will forget it all. We will sing those things to sleep in you, all the things that you have heard here this evening. You will not even remember this meeting. You will forget that we are singing snakes in your head. You forget it all now. I'll not forget, Thomas insisted. I'll remember it all and act upon it. He started to rise, and he fell in rising. He was into a daze. Then they sealed it all into him with searing laughter so that his mind shrank and closed. Boggle, Skyball, and Swampers, jackal laughter, barking derisive laughter, tearing, wounding laughter, North Prophet, Knobnoster, Bee-Bonnet, howling dog laughter, laughter that will make a man lie low in his skin and hide, Potscamp, Holy G and Gandy, wilderness wolf laughter, ghost laughter, laughter that opens the bleeding inside. This was insane stuff. Thomas bolted out the door and then turned in amazement, trying to remember where he had been and what he had done. Where had he just come from? There was no door or opening in the alley lane at all, only blank faced building. But he was bitter with anger and shame. He had just been deeply humiliated, and his mind was in a blank turmoil. Thomas struggled for remembrance for what seemed hours, but was actually less than a minute. Two men were approaching, and he was in no condition to meet anyone. They were the important men North Prophet and Potscamp, but what was the matter with them? Their faces were contorted into comic tragic torture lines. They seemed almost to sob, and they moved clumsily. They came up to him and touched him. Thomas, they said, we be souls in agony. What must we do to be saved? Thomas stared at them and could not fathom the clowns at all. Your unfunny irony is too much for me this day, he said. Be gone. Well, that was something, unless it was nothing. And we'll follow Thomas further into his election to the presidency of Astrobe next time.